Hey there, I'm Sarah Hodges, and this is Executives Uncut, the live podcast where we get to know real executives and the challenges they face so we can provide practical solutions in today's world. Today, we're talking about a new business paradigm, and I'm here with Nicole, which I just realized, Nicole, she and I were chatting so much. You can bring Nicole in. She and I were chatting so much before this that I always ask how to pronounce last names because I always make them really complicated. And I have never, even though I've known you for months, asked you how to pronounce your last name. And I'm like, Bellisle, Bellisle? How do I do it?
I've gotten all of those variations, but
Have you?
your first instinct was right. It's Bellisle.
Bellisle. Okay. I definitely said Belisi when I was in your class. So anyway, Nicole is the co-founder of Collective Channel and an executive leadership educator at Harvard University. And that is where we met. I was taking a course on sustainability, and Nicole, you were one of the TAs, and we got to know each other and fell madly in love with all of our like alignments in terms of everything from spirituality to leadership to sustainability. But tell me your version of how we met.
Oh, Sarah, yeah, it's was such a joy to cross paths with you. And what I loved about having you in that class is just the leadership that you showed up in among peers. And I think through our conversations and really getting to digest the content together and even grow the content a bit through our conversations, I right away saw you as a kindred spirit, as this is someone who's really embodying this work and not just offering it to clients, but doing it on the daily and embedding it into how you actually do your work and grow your company. So it feels like the beginning in many ways, but it's so fun to have met you in that course and to keep deepening our work together.
Yeah, I felt the same. I felt like, you were a TA and at the same time you were a kindred spirit. I felt like we were two women on a very aligned path. And, we had talked about this podcast after that course, and I'm so happy that we're finally making it happen. And what's so funny is that we're here to talk about a new business paradigm and self-leadership and what that means, but you have had a pretty significant life change. Do you want to share it?
Yeah, so talking about new paradigm and even the name Executives Uncut, right? Like this is,
Right.
as you can see, this is real life. And my life right now is living out of a van, doing remote work and meeting with clients from the road. I'm actually stealing Wi-Fi from a hotel in Sedona right now. So my
Amazing.
days have been getting out in nature and exercising every morning as part of my morning routine, doing a sustainable amount of work at the peak heat of the day, and then getting back out there, meeting people, getting back out in nature. And this way of existing, it's pretty experimental for me, but it's been something I've wanted to do for a long time. And I'm just finding that it's only deepening my understanding of what self-leadership even is, to be out here doing life on my own terms. And I'm seeing so many people doing this too. I
So
think
cool.
more than ever before, since COVID. So I think this is a real trend, that we as leaders will have to learn how to interact with and potentially do ourselves.
This is fantastic, and that's so unbelievably inspiring. You're just out there with nature. You're living just a real aligned, natural life and marching to the beat of your own drum. And in order for people to do that, to show up to that level of authenticity, you really do need a new business paradigm. But tell us a little bit about where you came from so our audience can understand your full journey from corporate to living in a van.
And quite a journey it's been. I look back on my life 10 years ago, and it looked so different. And just to paint that picture, I was living in, luxury apartment in Boston. I could walk to work. I was working at Harvard University at the time, where I was working with executives and founders of startups from all around the world. I was getting to travel the world. I was, in full makeup and full hair every day, and just such a different context.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I really, really did. It was just right for where I was at the time, but I was operating under a set of principles that had a lot of assumption embedded in them.
Mhm.
I had a lot of assumptions around who I needed to be as a leader of these global programs for executives and other leaders. And I had a lot of stories or narratives around what my life should look like or what success looked like. So I, at that time, had really taken on this external definition of success that I had built up over the years. So I was
Mhm.
working 9 to 5 at Harvard. I was helping a friend grow her startup on the side. She went on to get funded at Shark Tank and everything, and it was
Wow.
amazing, but such hard work. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
on top of that, I was also getting my MBA at night. And I
Jeez.
realized, where am I in all this? There's no space to be human in any of this. This is all oriented in action and doing, and there's very little being in this
Yeah.
lifestyle. So I hit a point where I was like, I think I need to rewrite my definition of success. What would I be what would I feel like would be a true failure if I didn't do in this life? And as I started to reflect on that, I realized, oh my gosh, I think for me, I'm doing it wrong. And so I left Harvard, I moved west to Colorado, I led multiple impact driven companies out that way. And then at the start of COVID, ended up even leaving those and going deeper and starting my own company, co-founding Collective Channel. So it's it's been a wild ride, and there's been a lot of pivots and self-discovery along
Yeah.
the way, but I'm only getting closer to the truth of who I am, and doing that through work.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying. It's about you getting to the truth of who you are, because we're not promoting van living here, right? That's it's we're promoting like living in a van if that's right for you, and really
Yeah.
being honest about your own journey, what's going to make you feel fulfilled, and that isn't necessarily our traditional cultural expectations. We talk about that a lot with the A+ method, that it's easy to get an A in life, a traditional A, but that plus, that elusive plus, it's about the fulfillment. It's about knowing what's really important to you, operating from your place of core values. And that's where self-leadership comes in. Do you agree? Or
Oh, definitely. And it's amazing the level of self-awareness that takes, and the level of going inward. There's a lot of courage that comes with that, because we all have trauma, we all have old beliefs, we all have thought patterns that are keeping us afraid and maybe in a context or a mold that doesn't actually suit us. But if we look at the diverse array of human desires and needs, no two people are going to want to design their life in exactly the same way. And
yeah.
yet I think we can redesign or up level the systems of our world to accommodate
Mm.
the diversity of these individual visions, for what life can be. And so I do think that starts with self-leadership.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. How can a business paradigm support true, authentic human growth and discovery?
So I think it starts at the individual scale to some extent. I think
Yeah.
it starts with vulnerability, and again, having the courage to go in and fully express your truth, even if that's against the mold, or even if that's not what you think your current context wants to hear. I think so many of us for too long have feared causing discomfort in others, or feared disrupting systems. But it is the disruption of systems that evolves our world. And I think over the years, I'm realizing that disruption starts in here. We have an entire set of inner systems that get reflected out in the external world. So if
Right.
we are truly embodying what is real and true for us, people around you feel that. Your team feels authenticity and vulnerability. And then
Oh, yeah.
as a leader, you become the invitation. So I think it starts with the inner work, then embodiment, then you become this invitation, and others and the fabric of your company starts to orient around that invitation, really.
Mhm. So explain to us a little bit about what you've done at your company, Collective Channel, and how you guys are creating a business paradigm that is built out of your personal growth, inviting others to do the same.
Yeah, gosh, we have gone deep on this. Because we had
Cool.
the luxury of getting to start from scratch and getting
Yeah.
to basically reverse engineer from, this is what we hypothesize a new paradigm business could look like. So how do we work backwards and start doing that now? How do we
Cool.
ready ourselves to be that type of leader? And for us, that has looked like everything from priming our bodies
Mm.
and minds, including mindsets, but also just mental clarity. So priming self to even be able to embody the new business paradigm.
Sure.
And we've really, as we envisioned what's possible for business in the future, we identified that it starts with people. Relationships are really at the core of this.
Yeah.
And even more important than the currency of money, I think we're starting to see that the currency of trust is
Mhm.
really the currency of the future.
I
And
have
that
chills. That's so true.
ah,
Yeah, it's like a mic drop moment. The currency of trust. Nice.
yeah, yeah. Because without that, you can't have authenticity.
Yeah.
You can't have true expression. And without that, I don't think you can have true innovation. So we essentially, what we did is we said, okay, if trust is the currency that we're after, and if it starts with relationships first, let us start with people. And what that means to us is, let's only work with people that we love. Because if you work with people you love, you can get through anything. And it almost doesn't matter what you create. So we started with, this is our dream team. What do we want to create? So got
Nice.
together with my co-founder, Savannah. We now have a co-owner who owns a third of the company now, named Michaela, because we have an employee-owned profit share model that we operate under.
So
But
cool.
yeah, we're really changing the rules of the game, and in order to honor this other facet of what we think the future of business can be, right? We see this in the blockchain community too. This system of decentralized, self-managing nodes, where
Right.
every person gets to have their own personal agency and their own self-leadership. It takes a lot to get an individual to that point, but then what do you do when you bring together people who do have these diverse needs, right? And they have their own agency. It
Right.
we've discovered that you really, if you can uncover the simple rules or the shared values that sit at the center, that
Mhm.
becomes part of the decision making logic, and those values become part of the governance, which you get to build out. But yeah, we're really operating from a place of getting to design work on our own terms and still do incredibly meaningful, hyper aligned work. It's not that we're less efficient, we're just more aligned, and so we're spinning our wheels way less. We're wasting far less resources because of the hyper alignment that we're finding in self and with other.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. You're creating an organization to support the people instead of the people supporting the organization. And then what
Yes,
you end up getting is reciprocity. You have an organization that support people who then want to support the organization that's then supporting them. Right? And I
totally.
love that. And something that we're getting into a lot at Hodges Coaching is applying the A plus method to organizations to help them adapt and evolve, because people change and people are going to leave and different people are going to come in. So have you guys put any thought on your end into how your business paradigm can continue to evolve while the people who are in it evolve?
Yeah, so we our our current solution to that, knowing that it might evolve and that if we have a larger team, this might
Yeah.
look a lot different. But our current solution to that has been to operate in business cycles or rhythms of
Cool.
where we end with a rest phase. So we're operating in monthly cycles, seasonal cycles, because we're getting like real new paradigm now. Like I'm also happen to be from Boulder, Colorado. So there's a lot of just exposure to just, oh gosh, pagan holidays, you name it. There's a lot of influence that's showing up in Boulder culture. But
Of course.
we instead of quarters, we actually do seasons. And that feels a little bit better to us. And so within these cycles, we have mechanisms at many, many scales, right? So on the monthly cycle, on the seasonal cycle, on the annual cycle, even on the weekly and the meeting scale, where we're retroing on,
Cool.
we've been calling it an RRPR, rest, reorient, pulse check, and retrospective. And so
That's
we
awesome.
we're harvesting all the time what worked about this, because in nature, and Sarah, you'll probably remember this from the biomimicry modules in the
Oh
Harvard
yeah.
course, but in nature, the more iterative feedback loops that we can build into design, the more adaptive we become. And
Yep.
adaptability, in this world, it's like
It's huge.
huge. So
Yeah.
we get to design for that. And if humans are part of our technology that we have when it comes to creating purpose in the world, then we get to design those human-based systems so that we have enough iterative feedback loops, and we're taking care of humans on the emotional level too, right? Like I'm thinking of in our onboarding process, we have many built-in check-ins for how is the reciprocity of this going on a value exchange level, on a meaning level, or like, are you actually getting the purpose that you would want out of this? Is this work energizing and activating for you, or are parts of it draining? Every person is a little bit different. So
Yeah.
so we've moved away from formal job descriptions and are really in the game of designing for an individual as opposed to designing for a machine, right? Like that has
Mhm.
where you just need clones, almost, to put it a little harshly. And so
Yeah.
it's a much more of a living system with regular check-ins on the emotional health of the team and the psychological health of the team.
So you're treating your business like a living organism, and you are helping your team check in to make sure they're operating from their strengths at all times and feel psychologically safe. So you're going to get optimal performance from everyone, optimal engagement. And, we know that psychologically safe teams perform the best. So you're just going to get a lot of high performance. It's very paradoxical, right? Because it's so different from the traditional business model. And yet, when we look at even neuroscience and how the brain functions, it makes perfect sense to operate this way. But if there's an executive out there listening to this who has a very traditional hierarchical business model, what can they do to start if they see the value in this?
Yeah, I think an easy place to start, because a lot of this has longer term return, right? It's like it's not in the traditional business mindset to incorporate rest into the cycles of business.
Yeah.
That's seen as inefficient or unproductive. So I think even if you have a very linear brain or logic strong perspective on strategy, just asking the question, how might I build a more regenerative system for this company and for these teams? That can be a really wonderful place to start, because ultimately burnout as I think the biggest business risk of our time, aside from climate change and and the external risks that
I
we are
totally
in this
agree.
context. But
Yeah.
internally, on the individual and the team level, burnout absolutely kills innovation and productivity.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, Sarah, you're so steeped in, in the science behind this too, but our executive brain function
Mhm.
literally goes offline and we go into our fight or flight
Mhm.
faculties. And
You
so
just live there. You
you
can't
just
get
live
anything
there.
done there. You're gonna start a lot of
No.
arguments with people. You aren't gonna sleep
Yep.
at night. You can't focus on your work. So you're having all of these, it's like a robot on empty batteries that can't quite get their stuff done every day. That's
Yeah.
what you're doing to your whole staff. Yeah.
Absolutely. You get into this place of reactivity instead of
Mhm.
proactivity. And if we want to be truly adaptive, like we've got to be out in front of that wave
Mhm.
rather than just kind of in this panic mode, right? Of like, this fire is up now, so let me do this. And not to mention when it comes to chronic burnout or systemic burnout in a culture or in a team, retention falls off the wayside, productivity goes down anyway. Like you said, you get this toxic culture, and that
Mhm.
has all kinds of ways that it manifests and turns people
Yeah.
off and hurts the bottom line. So it's just this idea of regeneration um, and even for someone who has operated in the old paradigm and really succeeded in that. Like I've personally burnt out. I did it the traditional way for a really long time and pushed myself in that, and I did burn out. And so I've also had to go through this incredible process of healing myself and healing my body's systems, and that has taken years. So I think it's
Yeah.
also worth just taking a pause in self and asking, am I living a regenerative lifestyle? Is showing up to work and life in this way sustainable for me? Do I get joy in showing up in this way? Because if not, what are we here for? Of course, we have financial obligations and all those things, but there's no one way to get to that outcome. I think we do get to design an experience that is more regenerative, and ultimately more fulfilling.
Yeah. Well, this is so inspiring. And I'm wondering, just to make it even more tangible for our listeners, do you have any success stories that you want to share from your clients or anyone else you've worked with who have been on a similar path?
Yeah. So I'll share a story it's a bit of a collective story because it's a story that's true for me and it's a story that is true in what we're experiencing with our clients. And
Cool.
that is the story of actually getting further and reaching our goals faster with less, and by
Nice.
actually honoring the slowdown. So I actually, if you look at a more holistic balance sheet, let's call it, of a person, where you've got all these dimensions of health and wealth, whether it's occupational wealth or financial wealth. If you were to map that or do an assessment of all of that, I can honestly say that myself and our clients, we have more holistic health and wealth metrics by doing business and work differently and creating these inner systems differently than we did in the old paradigm. And we're spending less time working, but when we do, it's with hyper aligned people on hyper aligned stuff. And
Yeah.
so we're not needing 8 hours of productive time. We're Most of us are working 4, maybe 5 hours a day on the things that fill us, and we're doing it in in ways. I'm like doing this because of my current context, but we're doing it in
Yeah.
ways that feel good to us, and ultimately finding more creativity, more innovation, and the relationship quality that we're finding in these teams is higher. So the story that I've heard over and over again is, I went from working 50 hours a week, being overweight, suffering from burnout, not able to sleep, not being present with my family, drinking too much to calm the edge, and then overcompensating for that the next day with a bunch of caffeine. Like that was the old me, like, personally. And now I'm like, I work 25 hours a week on stuff that I love with people I love from anywhere I want, effectively. So my level of personal agency has really gone up. And and a big part of that has been learning to say no to that which isn't for me, and learning to uncover the standards or the principles or the values that are so deep in me, and then not settling for anything below those standards. And that's really what we're helping the female executives that we work with do, is uncovering those standards, learning to say no, and setting up boundaries with their clients, with, and even with their loved ones, so that they can protect living life on their terms, basically. And then they become an invitation, right? Like, they're not only are they a leader in their company, they're a leader in their life. Their friends and family see it, their kids see it, and it just
Wow.
it changes humanity, I think.
Those are the results that matter when we talk about ROI, right?
Yeah.
So if you could distill all of this into 3 quick tips for us, what would you say?
I would say take the time to identify what values and principles are really true for you. What are the standards that you want to be living your life by? These could be the non-negotiables, right? The things that you would protect with boundaries. So taking that time as number one. Number two, getting comfortable with the discomfort of stepping into living life on your terms, because it's not comfortable to go against the grain. It's hard to paddle against the mainstream, to paddle against the current that most people are in.
Right.
So it's not going to be easy, but that in that discomfort and on the other side of that fear is so much growth. And like you said, Sarah, there's actually higher ROI if we can be brave enough to swim through that fear, even at the expense of what others might think, right? So we all have those core fears.
Of course.
And then I would say, just, learning from nature, and kind of coming back to the fact that we are nature. We've really gotten away from that. We've been living in a mechanistic view of the world for hundreds of years. But as we come back from that, asking ourselves, how might nature do this? How does nature scale? How might I regenerate my systems and be a really healthy and wealthy, but in all realms, human? So just applying the regenerative lens to literally anything can be really, really helpful. And then it's like, my gosh, we get to let go of burnout. We get to stop feeling like crap. We get to stop drugging ourselves with caffeine to even be able to show up to our lives. Like, there's just so much that comes with it. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yep. It's true,
And
though.
I mean, yeah, I drink caffeine too, but it's
I
like,
know, I'm just teasing.
yeah,
But when you really need it and you depend on it, that's an indicator.
exactly,
That maybe there's room for regeneration, to use your word. Yeah. Those are such
some joy, or totally.
right. Those are such great tips. I think the only thing we're really missing here is some pictures of your van. So Justin, could you pull those up, because we need to see this? Oh man, you're making me want to live in a van, girlfriend. That is amazing. Wow. Oh gosh.
That's up in Telluride.
What made you say, I got to go do this?
I set out on this journey because I needed to learn how to be alone. I needed to learn how to build safety and trust in myself, because of this currency, right? Like, the minute I realized trust is the currency, I had to ask, do I have full trust in self? And this felt like the most fun and the most radical way to build trust in self. And the fun part of this too is that I'm actually not even doing this through monetary exchange. This isn't even my van.
Are you
I am
serious?
I am bartering with a female leader and helping her scale her company. And in exchange, she's letting me use this van for a month to go on this epic journey in self. So it's like anything is possible. I
That
just, yeah.
is amazing. Oh my Lord. That's so fantastic. Oh, this has been, I feel like there's so much more for us to talk about. I know that we both have some alignment spiritually too, which I think there's room to bring that in. This is Executives Uncut, and we get real and talk about cool stuff and weird stuff and unusual stuff. And I would love to have you on again to talk about your chakra leadership program and some interesting ways in which you approach the whole person as a leader, and all the different lenses you look through. How does that sound?
I would love that. Yeah, I would love to share those frameworks and get into that piece
Yeah.
of life. It's really core.
That would be so awesome. But I want to leave everyone with a coaching question today to just ask yourself, how are you modeling self-leadership in your organization? And I think more specifically, how are you modeling regenerative leadership in your organization? To use your word, Nicole, because it's such a perfect word for this new business paradigm in a way that regenerates us instead of burns us out. Anything else that you want to add?
Oh, it's just so beautifully said, Sarah. I think that's the perfect question to leave
Cool.
people with, and just so grateful to be able to meet in our spirits and our minds in this conversation. So thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And where can our viewers find out more about you?
So you can head to collectivechannel.com to learn more about how we are inviting female leaders into operating in this new paradigm and growing their practices around self-leadership. We're pretty active on social media as well. So we are at Collective Channel on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And if you want to get in touch with me directly, I welcome any outreach on email. I am just Nicole@collectivechannel.com. I do one-on-one and group coaching, as do my peers at Collective Channel. So there's a whole team of us who would love to serve and help others embody this way.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Well, thank you again for being here. This was very inspiring. I want to go barter for a van now and take a month-long journey. I don't know if my toddler would do very well with that, but you know what? We can teach her to be adaptive. But thank you. And thanks everyone else for tuning in to this episode of Executives Uncut. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe, share with someone who could benefit. You can always visit hodgescoaching.com for new episodes or follow us at Hodges Coaching on LinkedIn or YouTube. I'm Sarah Hodges, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.